they were used, small ones, for salt, for sauce, and even for strong liquor, sort of spirit cups. Where this one varies greatly is the shape and the form with the bears. Now, usually they just have a handle.
Fedor Rukert opened his Moscow workshop in 1887, a German émigré who had trained in Württemberg before settling in Russia as a teenager. He supplied the house of Fabergé under his own mark, an arrangement granted to no other workmaster in the firm's history. His enamel revived a Muscovite style that had been dormant for 2 centuries. The Hillwood Estate Museum in Washington holds the largest surviving American collection, assembled in the 1930s by the serial heiress Marjorie Merriweather Post.
And he's well known for this type of enamel, and particularly for the use of these greens. You see these shaded and light and pale greens. You don't see that on many other examples of this cloisonné work. The eyes of the bears themselves are actually, I think, probably little tiny chips of ruby. And spectacular. Date the very end of the last century, beginning of this. That's the popular period for this sort of enamel work. It does have a little damage. I don't know if you've noticed.
Yes, yes. Is it possible to do something about that?
Yes, you can. Because of the cloisonné form, it's easy to repair. I say easy. It can be done much easier than for, say, a whole enamel object.
The kovsh form was originally a single drinking vessel passed hand to hand at boyar feasts in the 17th century.
Well, I think it is. It's a difficult object to value for the reason that it is not the standard type. I have not seen one of these come on the market for some time, and so I'm going to give it a range. Let's say somewhere between £8,000 and £12,000 would be the value, I think. But it could make more. It's very popular at the moment. Russian works of art are
I don't want to part with it,
on a
but
high
I want
roll.
to show it.
Keep it on the mantelpiece. Wonderful.
It doesn't bother me what you collect, but one thing I've noticed is that within certain areas of collecting, there's always what I call the niche collector. And looking at this wonderful ensemble of clocks, you definitely qualify.
Archibald Knox was born on the Isle of Man in 1864 and never left it for long. Liberty bought his designs anonymously. The firm's policy was that the brand mattered, not the maker. For 60 years, no one knew who had drawn these pieces. It wasn't until a Manx Museum exhibition in 1976 that Knox's authorship was reconstructed from his surviving notebooks. He designed more than 400 objects for Liberty and died, almost forgotten, in 1933.
This one is obviously in pewter, and it probably says underneath Tudric, yes?
It does, yeah.
Tudric pewter was brought into the Liberty catalogue in, I think, 1902. They'd already introduced Cymric silver, or Cymric, or some people call it Cymric, whatever you want to call it. That happened a year earlier. But pewter was far more cost-effective. The design you think of, the big name that everybody talks about is, you can tell me. Try Archibald Knox.
Archibald Knox.
Exactly,
that's
Archibald Knox, on the tip of your tongue.
Yeah.
And this is sort of typical Archibald Knox. He's living on the Isle of Man. He's influenced by all the Celtic crosses.
Yeah.
So you've got this definite Celtic influence. And then the enamelling is quite sumptuous, isn't it?
Very.
The Cymric silver line launched in 1899. The cheaper Tudric pewter followed 3 years later, aimed at clerks and schoolmasters.
Let's give you a valuation on this fella.
Thank you.
Today I see them around the £7,000 mark.
Oh, wow.
I think is where you stand with that one.
Oh, that's great.
With the silver one, they're quite standard, around the £1,000 mark.
Yeah.
Maybe 1,200, depends where you're doing your shopping. Yeah. So collectively, I've worked out that you've got some in the region of about £36,000 worth of clocks.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Everybody wants them at the moment. Everybody. But you've got most of them. That's why.
This video is brought to you by Velco, the Antique Identifier app. Snap a photo of any item and Velco gives you an instant identification and a value estimate from its database of millions of antiques and collectibles. Available free on the App Store and Google Play. Now back to the appraisals.
Sculptural objects, there's very little else you can say except they are marvellous pieces of sculpture. They are, of course, salt cellars, in fact. It's what they were designed to do. Now, these were made by this very famous goldsmith called Paul Storr. 3 of them were made.
Paul Storr apprenticed to Andrew Fogelberg in 1785 and emerged with the most ferocious technical command of his generation. By 1813, the year these salts were hallmarked, he was the principal silversmith for the Prince Regent's court. He retired in 1838 to a house in Tooting and died there 6 years later. His maker's mark, the joined letters P and S, is the single most forged hallmark in English silver, and Storr fakes still come through London sale rooms most months.
There's a very famous salt cellar made for Francis I by Benvenuto Cellini, but I think the design that Paul Storr, who made these, will have seen and slightly got a feeling for was actually at Windsor Castle. At Windsor Castle there are some sauce boats and salt cellars made by a man called Nicholas Spremont in the 1740s that have very much this idea of shells being held by sculptural mermaids, mermen, tritons and so on. And I think that he will have seen those because he worked for a firm or worked with a firm that worked very largely for George III, and he will have seen those at Windsor Castle, probably even repaired them from time to time, and I think this is where he will have got the general idea.
Fewer than a dozen complete Storr salt cellar sets in this design are known. Most are in private American collections.
Either from a private house or at an auction or whatever, if I had to buy them, I think I'd have to be looking at £40,000.
Good Lord. To commemorate his time in command of the 10th Hussars.
Do you know what most people don't realise about these great centrepieces? Is what extraordinary construction kits they are. And if you don't get these in the right place, they don't necessarily fit properly. So do you know who made it?
The 10th Hussars were George IV's personal regiment. He had served as their colonel since 1796 and stayed with them for over 30 years. After he succeeded to the throne in 1820, he commissioned this piece from Rundell, Bridge and Rundell at 32 Ludgate Hill. The firm held the royal warrant continuously until 1843. At its peak they employed 50 silversmiths simultaneously, the largest goldsmith's workshop ever active in London.
Here, Rundell, Bridge, et Rundell, Orifice Regis. Rundell, Bridge and Rundell, the royal goldsmiths. The maker's mark there is that of Philip Rundell. I would suggest the greatest firm that there has ever been in the history of silver. But what Rundell did was to develop this firm.
Most of these George IV presentation commissions now sit in the royal collection or in officers' messes that descend from the regiments he raised.
We believe about 10 years ago had it in the area of £750,000.
Right, 750,000. I would go along with that. It is, after all, a unique piece, commissioned by the king for presentation to one of the greatest of all the regiments. I mean, what a...
Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this one, hit the like button and subscribe so you don't miss the next. And there are plenty more incredible appraisals waiting for you on the channel. Go check them out.